the story of the bacon trend, which I'm sure you've all seen in every way, from more bacon sandwiches at Wendy's and Burger King to Brussels sprouts and bacon flavored brownies at different sort of restaurants around here or wherever, is really interesting because it totally came out of necessity. It was something that was created by industry, and a great example of how food trends can be made. They don't just happen all the time. If done right, it can blossom. And the bacon sales, to sort of a little bit of history, is bacon was always the meat that you had beside eggs and pancakes and in BLTs and Cobb salads, and that was pretty much it. And because it was tied to BLTs and Cobb salads in the summer, the price of bacon and pork belly would spike with tomato season and die off with tomato season. So now would be high price for pork belly, and then January, February, it would just be people wanting to serve bacon with eggs and pancakes. And what happened in the late 70s and the 80s and through a lot of the 90s was the low-fat diet trend. We all remember cooking egg whites in margarine, even just remember margarine. Low fat would, you could sell anything if you advertised low fat. That was the prevailing health trend of the day, and it really killed off bacon, which is basically fat with a little bit of meat on it. And so the price of pork bellies were, through the floor, really, really low. And the belly is the biggest part of the pig. If you think of a pig, it's just like, almost a quarter of it's the belly. And they called it a drag on the carcass. And the price of pork belly pulled down the price of ham and the price of pork chops, and the pig producers in the United States were, really losing their shirts. And they were saying to the Pork Producers Council, the National Pork Board in Iowa, you got to do something to help us. You got to do something to drive sales of bacon. They say, okay, well, we can't sell more bacon to the consumer at home. If they don't want it. But, if we can get restaurants with scale interested in it, maybe there's a way we can sort of kickstart demand and drive something. And so they went to the fast food restaurants and they say, we'd love to sell you some more bacon. What can we do? And they're like, well, we like the taste of bacon. We think it improves things. But, the problem with bacon is, if you've ever cooked it, there's a lot of grease, there's a lot of smoke. That's a lot of liability for our chain of burger stores with 3,000 locations. We don't want people burning themselves and suing us, or we don't want to have to deal with these huge grease traps full of bacon grease. We'd love something that was cleaner and easier. And what they did, but they said, because we're trying to sell these chicken breasts and low-fat, no-fat burgers, which are just dry and tasteless, especially when you cook them in a mass way, bacon would be great, because if we can put a slice of bacon on that sandwich, all of a sudden it's going to taste better and we can upsell it for 50 cents more or whatever. And so what they did was they went and they developed they worked with the industry to develop a line of pre-cooked ready-made bacon that when you go to Tim Hortons now, they're not frying the bacon, they just sort of reheat this pre-cooked bacon in a convection oven and put it on top of your sandwich and charge you $1 more for it. And so they started it, and the pork industry worked with these restaurant chains like Burger King and Hardee's and A&W and McDonald's to develop sandwiches and burgers that they could feature bacon on. And what happened was, once those started doing it, one saw that another one was doing it. Wendy's saw that Burger King was doing it. They added it. They added bacon to their sandwiches. Burger King sort of doubled down on the bacon, and the trend started rolling. And once a trend starts rolling, it has its own force. It has its energy behind it that makes it very difficult to stop. And so, the scale of even one or two of these chains started pulling up the demand and the price for pork belly and bacon. The pork belly and bacon producers started seeing this, advertised more, started working with more restaurant chains. The restaurant chains saw that their competitors were selling, and things quickly started growing. And then what happened is it broke out of that fast food, chain restaurant world into independent restaurants. People saw that other people were eating more bacon, and it became a cultural thing. Suddenly there were interesting, great chefs like Mario Batali and David Chang cooking pork belly and bacon with Brussels sprouts and other dishes in ways they hadn't before, moving bacon from breakfast to dinner to lunch to even dessert. And you know, a culture of bacon eating grew out of it. So you had a culture of high-end bacon lovers who were going to Momofuku and Batali's restaurant and, you know, the hip places and writing about it on, I mean, it wasn't Instagram then, but Facebook or Twitter or their blogs. And then the other end, you have these guys who are going into Burger King and ordering 7 strips of bacon on a burger, you know, and putting a bumper sticker on their car. And you know, the pork industry did whatever they could to sort of move this along, but they had already done their role. And the bacon industry and the bacon trend just kept growing and growing.